Happy Saturday, everyone. Thanks for making time.
Sure. Thanks for coming in on Saturday. We know it's a busy time for everyone, but we like to have this right on day 15 as a way to check in. And especially if some people can't make it during the week, we like to open this one up. So a couple quick logistics before we dive in today. Don't forget to fill out your writing goals survey. We love to see this. We're going to be doing some work for you all in helping you create your niche, naming your newsletter, helping you figure out your content buckets. Basically, anyone who fills out that survey is going to get some additional education from us. So make sure you do that. We will be sending it in a follow-up email today. And if you haven't already received it, you'll get it in the email today. Today's badge catch-up day, so take the time, get caught up. You got nothing else. If you want to get caught up during the live session, maybe while people are asking questions, we're going to have some time at the end as well during breakout rooms for you to do that. And then that's it on badges. Next live call is Tuesday at 12 p.m. We're going to go into a deep dive on Twitter threads and LinkedIn posts, show you some advanced techniques there, and then also keep your eye out for some early Captain's Table invitations to our top shippers at the end of the week. That's going to be exciting. We're going to have some fun stuff going on with that. That's all we got. As always, keep joining the daily accountability room. I was hanging out there again for about 15 minutes before. Keep showing up, and we will. Anyone been dialing into that on a daily basis? How are people finding that? If not, all good. A little experiment we've been running. Some people have built it into their daily workflow and they like it. They get to meet extra shippers. Either way, it's been fun to experiment with. That's at the top of your calendar if you are looking for the link. And then discussion groups. We will be doing another discussion group starting next week that you can opt into. Who has gotten to meet with their discussion group? Drop in the chat. Who opted in? Have you guys done a accountability session? Have you done any kind of jam session? Christina says on Monday. Love that. Keep dropping that in, or we will have another chance for you to opt in if you missed it. So good to see Sarah. Awesome. Cool. All right. Leaderboard. On to the important stuff. We are now at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 badges. 12 badges, just like that. And here's the legendary top shipper leaderboard. Can't beat this.
Let's see. A's are still strong. B's are still strong. C's are way strong. D's are strong. E's, we're down to 4 F's.
Okay.
And G's are hanging in there. Nice.
G's doing well.
We got a lot of J's. 4 I's.
Way to go, Johnson. Get back on. That's what it's all about. I love to see that.
Yeah, we got an army of J's in here.
Yes. Way to go, Christina.
M's and N's. Wow, we got a pretty solid group across the board right now.
I like it. Good stuff. Way to go. Where is Quico?
Let's see if
QR, previous page.
Oh,
we got Quico.
We do.
There we go. Quico, way to go.
Nice job. Hold it down.
There you go. Great stuff. Keep it up, Quico.
We got
all right. To claim your, what do we got today? What are we giving away? What's our doubloons?
It's doubloon
and it's going to be 3 people getting access to our formatting mastery Captain's Table challenge. So this for each of the live sessions we've had so far: lean writing, headlines, idea generation, and formatting. That is what we've been giving away. So I need the 4th person to type captain in the chat gets to pick the number, and that is Jose. Jose, can you DM me 3 numbers between 1 and 191 as quickly as you can?
1 and 191. 77.
77. Sorry if I missed. It's all right. Jose gets to pick. 77. What else?
2 more, Jose.
Let's 2 more. Rapido. Adam Hillis, congrats. 124. Okay. And 1 more. It's got a random number generator. And 111. All right, 111 and 124. Daniel, who we got? Elliot Porter, congrats. And then 1 more. So Elliot, Adam, And Carol, congratulations to all of you. Way to go. Great stuff. Congrats to all y'all. We will give access to you. You'll get that in a follow-up email. Congrats. Let us know how that one goes. I think a lot of people really, really like this one. So we'll be following up with you guys. Great. All right. Halfway bonus reward. Today, when you claim your badge, you're going to get a sweet custom banner. And that is what you're going to get. So when you claim your badge, check the ShipBot message that you has been delivering the follow-up bonus curriculum modules. And you will see a link to this with your Twitter bio and name.
Epic. We got some great shout outs. Carol, this really made me smile this morning. Reached 500 followers, but that's not what I'm celebrating. Celebrate your efforts, not the results. This mentality, I cannot encourage enough. I mean, I'll tell you that one of the ironies about going viral or, starting to see the chart go up to the right is that whenever you have a pop, things come back down to a baseline. And it's way easier for your psychology to be excited about the consistency of a habit rather than the ups and downs of the chart. So nice job, Carol, focusing on the right things. Bruno, over 6,000 impressions in 48 hours, retweets from Arvid Kahl and DM from Sahil. This is another great example of even if something doesn't get a ton of attention, if it gets the attention of the right people, so these are two other creators, that's really strong signal. It's kind of like when someone you really respect says, I loved that thing that you wrote. That in many ways is more meaningful than something getting 100,000 views or even 1 million views. So that's another great signal to pay attention to. Congrats on that, Bruno. Chad, my specificity isn't backfiring. Throw in the chat if you've experienced this as well, where the more specific you get, the more engagement you get, which is very counterintuitive. This is one of the big things that we try and pass along in Ship 30 is it's conventional wisdom that in order to reach more people, you have to be broader. And instead, if you want to reach more people, you actually need to get narrower, because then the internet's job is to find all the other people just like that one person. So yeah, Chad, why hustle culture hurts mid-career ministry leaders. There's a niche down right there, right? If you just wrote about why hustle culture is bad, well, there's a gazillion of those things, right? I mean, it's super broad. Who is it for? So the more specific you can get, the better. Nice job. And finally, Christina, my second Twitter thread got retweeted by CMO of Zapier and liked by Sam Parr. That is amazing. Here's if anyone wants like a fun, it's a great writing strategy, but it's also a little bit of a growth hack. Think that every company, and a lot of times big creators, but every company has the social media team. And half of their social media team's responsibility is to like and engage with all of the content talking about their company, right? So whatever your niche is, think of all the companies and brands that are in your category, your general vicinity of topics. And if you write about them, there's a very high likelihood that they're going to engage with your content, right? So if Daniel's writing about automations and he's like, these are 10 tools that you should use for automations, right? And he talks about Zapier, it's very high likelihood that someone on Zapier is going to see that. So interesting little thing to weave into your content is to think about what companies or other big creators you can mention, because they're all looking for things that are talking about them, right? So great job, Christina.
Yeah, way to go. Keep it up. All right. To claim your prolific shipper badge, you're going to comment on today's replay with a link to your day 15 post if you're 15 for 15, or leave a comment with your biggest takeaway from the first 2 weeks. No big deal if you're not perfect. No big deal if you've missed 1 day, 2 days, 10 days, whatever it is, as long as you're showing up right now. Today, that is what matters by far the most. So we will reward you with that prolific shipper badge if you simply comment with your biggest takeaway. All right. So the game plan for today is to take a breath, because it's worth sitting for a second and recognizing that we've condensed an entire year's worth of digital writing curriculum down into the first 2 weeks of this course. So you've built a writing habit, you've learned what lean writing is, you have an idea generation framework, you know how to write headlines, and you know how to format your writing. You now have every single piece of, or every single tool you could possibly need to write on the internet, on any platform, any medium, any length, any cadence, anything. So we want to make sure that we drill home some of these fundamentals before we move on to some of the advanced stuff that's in the back half of the course, like creating your niche, writing on specific platforms, digging into analytics, that kind of stuff that most people don't need to be thinking about yet when they're still wanting to learn the fundamentals. So we take a pause, we let everyone get caught up on their badges, on the curriculum. And today, all we're doing is asking questions and recapping. So we're going to run through each of these. We're going to pause. We're going to let you throw questions in the chat. So make it a goal to ask a question today. One question. If every person asked a question, we're going to have a really great session. So whatever it is you're thinking about, if you have a question on one of these topics, write it down and get ready for it. We're going to cover them one at a time. So we're going to start with lean writing. We're going to run through the fundamentals there, and we'll have a great discussion about each of these if you guys come with questions. So make it a goal, ask a question, and then we will be able to help. So why don't we start with lean writing?
Awesome. So if we remember, what is lean writing? Lean writing is the idea that before you go invest a bunch of time into writing something long form, you should find a way to test that idea in the smallest way possible, right? And the reason why that's so important is, well, why go spend 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 hours writing something that you assume readers want? You want to find a way to test that idea as quickly as possible, right? And one of the things that we really try and focus on in the first 2 weeks of Ship 30 are all the timeless principles. You know, one of the questions that we get asked all the time is like, day one, well, just show me how to write a Twitter thread, right? The problem with super tactical in the weeds things is they're always changing. You know, the most popular way to write 10 years ago is not the most popular way to write today. You know, and there was a time when writing on Quora, you could breathe and you'd go viral. And then the same thing with Medium. You could post almost anything and the platform would give you crazy distribution. Same thing with Twitter threads, same thing with whatever. The mediums are always changing. What's important is for you to understand, how does the game work, right? What is the flywheel that moves things forward? And that flywheel is really simple. Test lots of ideas, look for the ones that are resonating, double down on them, expand them, do them over and over and over again. And then eventually you become known for that niche because that's the thing that you're constantly writing about. And if anyone's been paying attention, you know, it looks like Twitter is going to make some changes to their platform soon. It looks like they're going to start changing the way that threads appear. We don't even know if they're going to keep threads. And it looks like they might start doing like longer form posts, more similar to LinkedIn, right? So if all we did was talk about how to write Twitter threads, and then Twitter goes and makes a change like that, well, now all that information is outdated, right? So that's why we place such a strong emphasis on, it's not about like the in the weeds nitty gritty stuff. It's about understanding how the process works so that you can apply it to any medium, because it's going to keep changing. The mediums are going to keep changing. Platforms are going to keep changing. So let's look at some of the questions. If you have a question on the lean writing front, throw it in the chat. Let's try and keep it to each topic so that we can organize them. But let's see. If you're not getting engagement, what's the best way to figure out if it's the topic or the format or the hook? The easiest answer is write more about it, publish more about it, try more combinations. Sometimes you'll have to have that conversation with yourself where you go, okay, I've been writing about this thing over and over and over again, and nobody's going for it. And that's where you kind of have to figure out, is it the topic or is it the way you're approaching the topic? You know, and a lot of times it is more how you're approaching the topic than the topic itself. So that's why it's an iterative game, right? We want to give you the skills, but it's something you have to keep testing and keep playing with.
So this is a common question, Martin and Cole. You usually have a good metaphor for this one about the person in the coffee shop.
Yeah. So yeah, Martin's question, how do you get a better idea of what's resonating if my writing doesn't get much engagement outside of the Ship 30 cohort? So whenever we get this question, every single cohort, and what I like to ask back is, well, what exactly do you want? right? Because if you were to go to a coffee shop and read some of your writing, right? Say it was like an open mic night, and you bring some of your writing to a coffee shop, and there's like 50 people in there. And a bunch of them come up to you afterwards and go, that was really great. I enjoyed that. You're not going to stand there and go, oh, sorry, I'm not looking for any opinions in this coffee shop. I only care about what people outside the coffee shop have to say. Right? Which makes no sense. You would, of course, listen to that and you'd be excited about it and you'd go, oh, thanks for the feedback. That'll help me improve. Right? So think of Ship 30 as one giant coffee shop. And you're surrounded by potential readers. And these potential readers are no different than the potential readers that you would find on Twitter or LinkedIn or any other platform. And so it's just a small group of people that is going to start giving you some data to follow. That's all. And if it happened in real life, that's how you would view it, right? It's the same thing.
Spot on. No need to overthink on that. During Ship 30, you're going to get more engagement from Ship 30 members. That's a perfect time because you know you're getting feedback and people are actually reading versus the opposite where no one reads anything and then you have no clue what you're doing. So all it takes is one or two questions for you to really kind of set the right direction, double down on that direction. So don't underestimate the power of having people putting their eyes on your stuff.
Travis, this is a good question. How do you use lean writing when you have a teeny tiny following? You just use the data that you have? Yes.
Yes.
So this framework is, and Dickie, hopefully one day when we have the bandwidth, I want to do this as a test where when you understand how this works, I firmly believe that any writer with proficiency could create a new account, an anonymous account, and grow back just as quickly. Because once you understand how this works, it's something you can repeat over and over again. And so, for example, when I was first starting out, when Dickie was first starting out, what would happen? You'd write about 5 different things and you'd be like, well, 4 of them got 20 views and 1 of them got 80 views, right? And the average person goes, they all got no views, but that's not true. 1 of them got 4x the others. That's a data point. Double down on it, right? And so as you write, all that's changing is it's just more zeros. You go from 40 views to 400 views to 4,000 views to 40,000 views, right? But the underlying process is exactly the same. And so that's why even when you're starting from 0, you want to just pay attention to the really small differences, right? 20 views, 20 views, 20 views, 80 views. Oh, data point, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to find a thread here where it's important to recognize that Cole started with 0. I started with 0. Every creator you've ever looked up to started with 0 followers. And so they had to do something in the beginning. And we followed this exact framework. So while we answer this next question, I'll find a way that you can look at my tweets from my first 6 months on Twitter when I had 0 following. And what you'll find is I'm talking a lot about the things I'm currently talking about today. But I only had 2 likes or 4 or 6. But I doubled down on those ones that had questions people asked. And you don't need a lot of data. You need one question, one like, one interesting thing, follow up with that person. I think people underestimate the power of one person and how that can totally change your content strategy. So I'll find something there that will be helpful for that.
This question, Kareen, why do my personal posts get more engagement than my business related posts? Well, first of all, this is subjective. Not sure, but I think something I've certainly learned over the past decade is that certain people are better at certain types of writing. There's just it's like when we talked about the 4 A's. Some people are just naturally better at analytical content. Some people are just naturally better at anthropological content. Some people really understand how to write actionable, super clear content. Each one of those approaches is unique and different. And this is why we talk about how before someone starts writing, they assume what's going to work. They assume, oh, if I write about this, this is what breeders want. And it's not until you get started that you realize that assumption might be wrong. And I've seen that happen over and over and over again, where someone goes, I want to write about this topic over here, but every time I write about this thing, this is clearly what's resonating with people. And that's an opportunity. It's a choice. It's something that you can act on if you want. But I think the more important takeaway is looking at those two and going, why might this be working? And how could I take what's working over here and apply it to something different? Because there's clearly a reason why. So maybe it's vulnerable statement openers, maybe it's compelling stories. Maybe you're using a different type of language. Maybe you're speaking to the reader in a more personal way. So how can you take those things that might be working and apply them to other topics as well? That's how I would perceive that.
So just because people were asking, I just dropped in the chat an advanced search for all of my tweets until September 1st, 2020. And if you scroll through that link, you'll find some pretty interesting things where I'm celebrating my 100th newsletter subscriber, right? I'm celebrating my 100th Twitter follower. And just spend some time, because it's easy to look ahead. And one thing I definitely have learned, and this never really goes away, and this is just a more general piece of advice, is don't ever compare your step 2 or 3 to someone else's step 8, 9, 10, especially on things that compound exponentially, right? So writing, finances, Twitter growth, health, all those things that compound over time. It's so easy to look at the people ahead of you and say, they must have never been in my shoes. But figure out how you can, instead of studying what they're doing now, study what they were doing back then. And that link, you can play around with the date, tweak it up and down, and see what I was writing, what Cole was writing on Twitter back a little over 2 years ago.
Yeah. Carol, this question of, I've been writing about wildlife photography since day 2, and people have commented that they look forward to them. Would it be wrong to then change to a new topic entirely at this point? So this is, we say this all the time, it's not a marriage decision. And if you choose to write about something new, something different tomorrow, it's not like everyone all of a sudden is going to go, oh, you've changed and I'm out, right? You're allowed to experiment with other topics. You're allowed to try new things. The thing that we just try and emphasize is that most people with their writing want to achieve some sort of goal, right? Like, you want to connect with other people in your industry. You want to eventually create digital products and monetize your writing. You want to use your writing as a forcing function of getting promoted or going and speaking on podcasts, or like, there's usually some sort of goal that the person wants their writing to be in service of. And the whole reason why it's so important to narrow down is because the only way to unlock outcomes for that specific topic is to write and talk about that topic a lot, right? It's like, you're not going to get a speaking gig talking about leadership if you never write and talk about leadership, right? Just really basic example. And so over time, the goal is, yeah, you want to find the topic that you want to unlock whatever rewards and outcomes that you want. But that doesn't mean that you can't experiment with other things along the way. Dickie and I both write about tons of different topics, but we know, North Star, digital writing, we got to come back to that. Should I write about what feels natural or what people want to hear? We talked about this in the first or second live session. You want the intersection of both. If you only focus on what other people want to hear, you're going to get burned out. And if you only focus on what feels natural for you and what you care about, then you have to divorce yourself from the external outcomes, right? You have to find the thing that's fulfilling for you and valuable to the reader.
What's the best way to understand analytics, Jared? We're going to cover that in a full live session next Friday. So that's in the back half of the course. I'm already starting to see engagement. Emroot says, on a topic I didn't intend to write more about. Should I double down on it? Well, that's the question, right? If you see that people are engaging on a topic you didn't expect to write about, you need to turn internal and say, great, this is now an option. People are interested in this. Do I want to write about this? And if the answer is no, you don't have to, right? But if the answer is yes, that's great. You found a new topic, right? So it always turns back into, when something feels really good to write, ask, is this serving the audience, right? What kind of external signal can I use to validate this? Or when something is engaged really well, turn it back inwards and say, what kind of internal signal do I feel? If this was really easy to write, you have a new thing to double down
on. Two quick questions, and then I think let's go to the next one, Vicky.
Cool.
One, Clint, the atomic essay format feels like it gets less engagement than threads. Any truth to this? No. We've had atomic essays go more viral than threads. And if anything, you could make the case that platforms like atomic essays more because they're media, because it's a picture, right? And so this question has been around since the dawn of the internet, right? It is short form video better than long form video? Is video better than text? Is Medium better than Quora? Is Facebook video better than, right? And all of it is just, it's kind of missing the point, which is they all work. All of them work. It's about the content. It's not about the video or the text or the podcast, or it's about what are you saying? They're all just vehicles. And this question we get a lot too. If my niche didn't get attention, how long should I continue writing until I change the niche? I really think the best answer for this is, are you on a mission for something or no? Because if you really care about a topic, if you are really on a mission to help a certain type of person, you're a lot less concerned with, am I getting all the metrics I want right away? And you're a lot more focused on, how do I just consistently help that type of person? Dickie and I both know we could write about different topics that would make our audiences grow faster.
Oh yeah.
But those topics aren't what we're on a mission to do, right? So I'm okay with other people having 10 times more followers than me because I don't want to write about those topics, and I'm on a mission to help writers, right? So I think this question of like, how long should I do this before I pick something else? I think there's a question beneath that, which is, do you really care about the thing that you're trying to write about? Because if you really care about it, you're gonna keep doing it for a long time, and you're gonna find a way to make it work. You're not gonna chase the shiny object.
Mm-hmm. Spot on. Love it. All right, that's all we have for lean writing. We will move on to headlines. So you guys are kind of try to keep your endless idea generation. Try to keep your questions, just because, so we don't have to scan through so many, only about the endless idea generator if you can, or your niche or topics or proven approaches. That way we don't have to skip your question. All right. Endless idea generation, anything to do on this. So if you remember, here are all the proven approaches, the way you can niche down, the credibilities, the for who's, the so that's. What questions do we have?
This one's kind of interesting. Are you guys using Jarvis or Chat GPT for ideation? I'm going to say right now, I'm not. Dickie,
No.
I don't know if you are.
I tried it, and I know that the way my brain works is, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it in an intense way. And so I want to block about a week and just learn everything there is about doing Chat GPT well. And I think Cole and I are going to do that together and create a product on it. So I'm like delaying the obsession that I know my brain will want to go to, and just passively gathering resources on it. So when I do go down the rabbit hole, I can get up to speed quickly.
Yeah, I want to write more about how digital writers can and should use AI, because my perception right now is that I don't think AI's best use case is for ideas. Because I think when you use AI for ideas, you're essentially outsourcing the most important part, right? The idea is where all the thinking is. AI is way better used for tactics and execution, right? So I would rather come up with the idea, understand why I'm picking the idea I am, and then ask AI, hey, I don't want to go read about this for 8 hours. Can you just describe this for me? Right? And I just use it for all the incremental, more boring, more laborious tasks. But I am a firm believer in the idea part, and the strategic part is a skill that is going to become more valuable over time as AI makes all of the tactical stuff less valuable.
Agreed. Agreed.
EIG related. Do you suggest batch outlining so that when it comes time to write any given post, it's a lot more efficient? You certainly can. Over the past few years, this has definitely been a muscle for me. Whenever I come up with an idea, immediately I try and just put 3, 4, 5 bullets underneath it. You know, what are the things that I want to say? And that way, when I come back to the idea, I'm not starting from just here's the idea. I at least have this little outline, you know, it's like, oh, here's the 5 things I wanted to say about that idea. And I think building that muscle is really, really great.
Yeah. So my process for that is anytime I come up with a topic that I could potentially write about, like really ideas come to me in like a specific way. So I look at questions, right? So I've been writing atomic essays, right? Someone asked what's my like editing checklist for my atomic essay. So I go, okay, great. There's something I could write about, my editing checklist for atomic essays. And I try to dissect. So right when I saw that, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet point I use the drafts app on my phone. It's super quick capture. But then I pause for another second and go, what is this problem that I'm solving? And it's people who want to write atomic essays, right? And then I'll do a second brainstorm of all the different things I could share. So I literally did this morning of, okay, if someone wants to know my editing checklist, what else might they want to know? And I put, what software tools do I use? What's my desk setup to write these? What is my step-by-step from idea to publish workflow look like? How do I organize my ideas? What are some things I've learned over the last 30 days on it? Why am I writing them in the first place? And so not only do I take that one idea and I list everything, I go, what are while my head is thinking about this, the potential tangential ideas. And now sitting in this document, I have 15 content ideas. And then what I'll do is I'll make outlines for each of those, and I have months. And this is exactly why Cole and I are writing these every single day, is because it forces you every day all year. It forces you to really think hard about what it is you're writing, how you can provide more value, and you end up treating ideas like precious currency, where if I have one idea, I go, how do I squeeze everything that I can potentially write about this? So now I can sit down and write a 14-day step-by-step series of everything I'm doing to write atomic essays for a whole year, all from one question. Someone goes, hey, what's your editing checklist for publishing these? Right. And that's how I bootstrap data. There were a lot of comments on that, but from one comment, I created a 14-day content plan. So that kind of goes back to our earlier point on, do I need a big following? No, you need one question. And that question goes, okay, they wanted help on this. How do I then go, what are all the other things they could want help on? Capture all those, and boom, you just write all those up.
This is a good follow-up question to that, which is, Sarah, if we create 2 niches, do we create a second account? And I want to use a metaphor here. If anyone has ever played video games, okay, imagine you create one character in the video game, and say there's 60 levels. Okay, so there's the whole journey, and then before you even get to the highest level, you go, I'm going to create a second character, right? And then you get that character up a couple levels. And then before even that character gets to the highest level, you go, I'm going to create a third character, right? And so what are you doing? You're basically just making it harder and harder and harder for yourself to ever get to all the rewards and outcomes that come from the highest level. And this is very, very similar to the way that you should be thinking about, I think, anything but writing on the internet, which is every time you try and start again, you are literally, quote unquote, creating a new character. And so if you want to unlock all the outcomes, you want to get to the highest level, you want all the big achievements, you want the attention, you want the money, you want the connections, you want the opportunities, right? You have to get to the highest level. And there is nothing that's going to keep you from getting there faster than going, I'm going to do a second niche and a third niche and a fourth niche and a fifth niche, right? Pick one thing, take it as far as you can. When we started Ship 30, I seriously thought, I was like, oh, start writing online, beginners, like I've already thought through a lot of this. We're going to do this for like 6 months and then we're going to say everything that we need to say. And after 6 months, we were like, this is going to take us another 2 years. And then now we're at the 2 year mark. And I'm like, this is probably going to take us another 5 years. Because you realize that the more that you dig into something specific, the more problems you unearth, the more people you can help, the more frameworks you develop, right? So I would strongly, strongly recommend, do not go, I'm going to try and do 3 things, because most people can't even do the one thing, right? One thing.
It all comes back to extending the time horizon, right? If you think I need to talk about all these things, for some reason you assume you're going to stop writing on the internet. Instead, say, what if I was writing for 50 years? Would I care if I talked about this topic today or that topic? No, because I'm going to be able to talk about all of them. And so the question of, I want to do all of this, how do I do it all? You don't do it all. You extend the time horizon and say, I'm going to do one thing one at a time, right? Am I going to write strictly about digital writing forever? Probably not, because at some point I will have said everything I want to say. But 2 years into talking about that as my primary topic, I know we could talk about it for 5, right? And I know if I'm writing for 50, I'll look back at those first 5 where I wrote about the craft of writing and be very happy that I started with that. So double down on one thing. It's going to be very helpful.
Yeah.
It's far, far easier to expand to tangential topics once you're known for one thing than to try to talk about a ton of things and grow from there.
Yeah. And this is, there's a bunch of things. So one, Jens, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Would you also say it makes sense to focus on one platform first? Yes. One. Simplicity is velocity, fewer things, right? Less is more. It is the hardest thing in human nature.
One topic, one platform, one person, one specific person. You can write for a full year. I did that all of 2021. I wrote for beginner writers, writing tips for beginner writers curated from people ahead of me. It's all I wrote in 2021.
One mic, that's right. And this, we'll do this last one, then we'll keep going. Steve goes, but you may not be enthused about that topic for 5 years. So yes, and you always have the option of pursuing something else. And that is kind of the whole challenge and point of being great at anything, right? Is the higher you go in any domain, sports, music, writing, science, anything, right? The higher you go, the more you have to work to gain incrementally better, right? And so there will be a point where you go, yeah, the novelty of this has worn off. And then you have to decide, are you chasing novelty or are you chasing being really, really great at that one thing? I am sure that Ryan Holiday wakes up being like, let's run it back on Marcus Aurelius again, right? Let's take it from the top, right? But because he is so committed to that, he just dominates that niche over and over and over again. New York Times bestseller, products, revenue, millions of dollars, but just crushing it. But like, that's the point, right? So it depends on what you want. What's the outcome you're optimizing for?
It's all about cherishing the monotony. The amount of sheer boredom that can come with doing anything at a high level, I think, is far more difficult than actually doing the work. Yeah. Right. It's overcoming the boredom and every ounce in your brain saying, let's go start something new. Let's do something different. And you look at anyone who's achieved anything at a high level, they've done the dead simple basics every day for a long period of time, whether or not they want to or not. And so that's a choice, right? If you want to always be enthused with what you're doing, you're probably going to bounce around a lot of things. But obviously that's the goal, is to spend an entire lifetime enthused. But I think the idea of like being enthused versus being fulfilled is far different. And so fulfillment, I think, can come during extreme periods of boredom, but excitement might wear off.
Mm-hmm. I really like how you worded that. Yeah, I agree. And if you're always chasing novelty, right? The reason why new things are so exciting is because you can witness the growth so quickly. It's very easy to go from I know nothing to I know one thing, right? That's what gives it novelty. but it's very difficult to go from I know pretty much everything that I'm saying, and in order for me to learn one new thing, it's going to take me another 70 hours of work, right? That's why it gets harder over time.
All right, that's it for endless ideas. That kind of turned into a life session. I kind of liked that. So maybe we should have a life Q&A as well, because those are always fun. But we're moving on to headlines. So, Cole, you want to talk about this single slide, everything they have for their headline checklist, and then also share with us your questions in the chat, and we will get to them.
Yeah, these I firmly believe that one of the probably top 5, maybe even top 3 most important skills as a writer, especially as a digital writer, is headline writing. Because when I think of headlines, I don't actually think of the headline itself. I think of your ability to say what you're trying to say in as few words as possible. If you can't say it in a headline, you will not be able to say what you're saying in 800 words, and you definitely won't be able to say it in 8,000 words. So headlines are a forcing function for thinking. And so we create these containers, right? That we know that these are things that readers are interested in: lists, stories, opinions, questions, and frameworks. All of these make the reader feel like they're holding something tangible. And the big aha here, this is what a lot of our live session was about, is the importance of being as clear as possible versus as clever as possible. If anyone here has worked or currently works in advertising, you know that every ad agency on planet Earth is concerned with being clever. And as a result, most people have no idea what any of those campaigns mean. You ever watch like the Super Bowl, you watch the commercials and you're like, I don't even know who this commercial is for, right? That's because they're so busy trying to be clever that they never got around to figuring out what are we actually saying here. So yeah, Mad Men definitely counts as advertising. So questions on headlines. Let's see where the holdup is.
What do we got?
Does it matter if the headline is short or long? No. What matters is the clarity of what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Relevant or irrelevant, not length. Remember, I will read the entire book that Cole writes about me, all 3,000 pages in one sitting. Doesn't matter how long it is. It's just relevance.
I think so. I see a couple of these in the chat. Yeah, Meg, my headlines are so long. Okay, so what I would ask whenever if someone feels, okay, my headlines are so long, is any reader commenting or DMing you saying, I really loved your piece, but your headline was too long? Has anyone drop in the chat if you've gotten that message? Because I'm going to go out on a limb and say that never happens, right? And the reason it's a multi-step thought process, right? The reason that never happens is because if you were clear and you gave the reader the thing they wanted and you fulfilled on that promise, they don't care. They don't care how many words are in the headline, right? Because you gave them the thing they wanted. And if you didn't give them the thing they wanted, or they weren't the reader that you were trying to reach, they also don't care because they were never going to read in the first place, right? So it's really not about how many words are in the headline. It's the clarity of what you're saying. And the reason that we really encourage long headlines is because when you're first starting, the headline is the easiest place for you to figure out what you're saying. And if your headlines start out as long, that's fine. Over time, you're going to get better and they're going to get shorter. They're going to be more succinct, right? But right now, it's just about learning the puzzle pieces.
What else? So this question on lists, Cole. Everything is a list.
Yep.
In some shape or form. And so lists are always the starting point for your headline, I think. And it's totally fine to keep them as a list. But you can easily reframe a list from 6 steps to how to. Right? There's no difference. The one's going to list, here are the 6 steps, and one's going to say, here's how to, step 1. right? Or frame, like you're always going to be listing something in some way.
This is a great example. I don't know if anyone's read this book I'm reading right now. It's called Less. Book won the Pulitzer Prize in 2021, I think. The list tees up the whole book. It literally says, like, there's a whole chapter where literally it goes, okay, and here's what's coming up. And the whole chapter is just one giant list. It's like, first, we're going to go to this country. Second, we're going to go to this country. Third, we're going to go to this country. Fourth, we're going to go to this country. And I had this whole moment where I was like, this Pulitzer Prize winning novel is using a listicle to frame the plot of the entire book. Right. And so there's this irony where people go, lists are only for BuzzFeed. It's like, no, they're not. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Has anyone ever read the book, The Things They Carried? Iconic book. They made us read it in school. It's, yeah, soldiers dealing with war, right? Iconic book. That book is literally 250 pages of lists. Here's all the things we carried. List them out. Here's all the things we carried. We carried water, we carried food, we carried a knapsack, we carried our boots, we carried our badges, we carried our guns, we carried our, what is that? It's a list, right? Everything is a list. And so when you frame it that way, it's very easy for the reader to go, well, now I know what you're giving me.
Lists simplify the world. And once you start thinking in lists, it's such a clear, I don't know, forcing function, constraint, mechanism for thinking, right? Because you can make lists of lists. You can take one list, one item within a list, and there's a list within that. Like there's a reason that bullet points are a popular way of organizing information. Because all it is a list of things. And what's a sub bullet? A list of bullets underneath that bullet.
Right. James, do you have sample resources for headline?
Yeah, I responded to that. I said, just read the deep dive. So the headline deep dive is awesome to drive these points home. And remember, y'all, you have access to the curriculum and whatnot forever. So you can always dive back into those deep dives and things at a later time. But it's worth taking some time, maybe today, or when you want to learn more about a specific thing, go read the deep dive associated with it.
Yeah. And this question to wrap up headlines, do you ever publish the same atomic essay multiple times with different variations of headlines? So you can technically, but I'm going to say no. And the reason why is because, again, this is why the headline is a forcing function for thinking. If you write a headline called 5 Mistakes Beginner Writers Make, and then you go, well, I don't know if that performed well. Let me change the headline to 5 Reasons Writers are Successful in the Digital Age. Well, yeah, you just changed the headline, but you also just completely changed the content of your piece, right? Because you're not just swapping words in a headline. You're literally changing the thing that you're going to write about. And so that's why it's not like, I don't like thinking of it like, oh, do I just do a bunch of clever words over here and post, and then I'll copy paste, same thing, different amount of clever words, post, see what happens. It's the headline is you're really asking yourself, what is the idea that the reader is interested in? And what you're testing is, are they interested in mistakes or are they interested in reasons, right? You're testing ideas. You're not just testing words in a headline.
All right. That's it for headlines. Last one, formatting. This was maybe the most popular live session. Proven single sentence openers, formatting checklists, 1-3-1, writing rhythms, main points, skimmable, outlines. Drop in the chat. What do we got?
Yeah, any questions here? Should that sub headlines drive curiosity or be clear, or both? So yeah, you want them to drive curiosity, but in as clear a way as possible. The goal, my measure for success is the reader should be able to skim only the subheads and know exactly what I'm talking about. That's the goal. They could only read the subheads and they'd be like, this was valuable. And if you can accomplish that, you'll be shocked how much more engaged readers are. Does the sub headline count into the rhythm as one sentence? So I like thinking of subheads as dividers. Think of the writing rhythms as the things in the section. So you have a subhead is kind of like the beginning of your container, and then 131, 141, 151, 161. So I like thinking of them as separators, not necessarily part of it. Once you get into more advanced things, yeah, you take that into consideration, you can play with it. But to start, just think of them like section dividers.
Mm-hmm. When is 131 less effective? Never.
So
I'll let you go. Yeah.
So I would say never. And there, like, a nuance is if you try and do 131 in a tweet, for example, and you don't have enough space. So the 131 there would be one sentence, 3 bullets, one sentence, right? So you would modify it for the medium or for the platform or whatever the restrictions are. But 131 is basically just saying, do you want rhythm in your writing? Yes or no? Would you suggest that your one sentence sections be a short sentence if possible? I mean, sometimes the thing that you're saying, you just can't, but yeah, I always like the things that I spend the most time on in my writing are the first sentences of sections, because I want it to be like, what is the most potent, the fastest, the easiest thing for the reader to immediately understand to get them into the section. So when in doubt, try and make it as concise as possible, but it's not a hard rule,
Mm-hmm. What else? Sentences or lines? Sentences.
Sentences.
What else?
Word count for sentences, wouldn't worry about it. You have to remember, the way readers read, we create kind of our own cadence in our head. We all read and hear the things we read differently. And so the reason why we say sentences, not lines, is because you will naturally divide that cadence by where the period is. So it kind of like, you'll have your own intuitive sense of, does this sound right or not? But you can hear when something is 3 sentences, you can hear where the rhythm of it is. So it's not about word count, it's about where the period is.
Love it. All right, we'll go one more question on formatting. We're running up on time today.
I see a lot of new writers writing one sentence, one sentence, one sentence, one sentence, right, all the way down. Is that also an effective way to write? Again, writing at its core is an art. It is a craft. Everything is subjective. Everyone can find their own way. My personal preference is no, because the tone of that is monotone. Na 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 na. Right? There's no change. And so, are there people who do it well? Sure, but I think over time you end up learning that there's more creative things you can do. 131 is a very simple example, right? Up and down, up and down. All right, well, all of these are topics that we go way further into in the captain's table. If you want to go down the rabbit hole, we have individual 5-day courses. Just as a heads up, we get asked this question all the time, so we wanted to cover it. Each one of these is a skill. Like our headlines course, I think, is like 20 hours or something. It is all the way down the rabbit hole. It is everything you could dig into in terms of writing headlines. So if any one of these are things that you want to learn more about, all of those resources are there. They're async. You can take them at your own speed. And then here's a little preview of the next 2 weeks. So we're going to do Twitter threads and LinkedIn posts. This is going to be a lot more focused on the tactical side of individual platforms. So if you've been waiting for that, that'll be fun. Session 7 is where we're going to dig into analytics and data-driven writing. So this is how to look at the data, what insights you can extract, what you should be paying attention to. Session 8, we're going to do a whole bio rewrite. So this is another fun one where, again, clear versus clever. We see a lot of clever bios. We're going to help you make them clear. We're going to give you a little introduction into how you can name and claim your niche. And then that's it. And then we're going to do our celebration call. It's always a lot of fun. We give people the chance to share their Ship 30 experience, things that they learned. how they changed as a result. It's always a really fun session.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks of the course are definitely more advanced. And we start with the fundamentals and we get those down because you're going to be developing those fundamentals forever. And those are an endless rabbit hole, which is why we have those challenges inside the captain's table, because you're going to be practicing those. Now, the second half of the course, we give a kind of brief introduction to the more advanced or tactical things that you can do to figure out your niche, build a rented audience, and build an owned audience, which are kind of the 3 pillars you need to build anything on the internet. So Twitter threads and LinkedIn posts, we get into some tacticals around how to write those in an engaging way that drive actual followers, how to take those followers, get them onto a newsletter, things like that, not everyone is as interested in. Some people just want to come for the writing, but other people know that they want to use writing to eventually build a business, launch products, all of those kind of things. So we want to dive into that. Same thing with analytics, right? You need to know what to double down on, how to connect that to your lean writing to eventually create products. And then rewriting your bio, figuring out your niche is all about, you wrote every day for the last 30 days. How do I take the data and come up with some kind of single statement that I'm going to go forward with from here? So a lot of interesting things here, and it's more or less our more advanced kind of side of the course, which is why we take this halfway checkpoint and say, here's what we're going to dig into next.
Yeah. And the reason why we tee all this up, right, is because, like we talked about today, chances are you have some sort of goal that you want to unlock with your writing. It could be clarity of thinking. It could be connecting with like-minded individuals. It could be accelerating your career. It could be monetizing your writing directly. It could be getting clients and customers, attracting attention for your business, right? Whatever that goal is. And in order to unlock that goal, you need to build what we call your own opportunity flywheel, right? And in order to create this little flywheel of opportunity for yourself, these are all the skills we need to build first. So we accelerate all that for 30 days, right? Then afterwards, for everyone who goes, okay, because we get asked this question all the time, for everyone who goes, all right, I've got my ship sailing. Now, how do I start unlocking those opportunities? That's what we dig into in the captain's table, which is that little opportunity flywheel. You need 3 things. You need a niche, you need a consistent and reliable audience building strategy, and you need a newsletter related to that niche. If you have those 3 things, you can essentially build anything that you want on the internet. You can build a community, you can build a course, suite of digital products, you can build SaaS if you want, you can do a service company, right? And so that's the whole focus of the captain's table after Ship 30 is clarifying, naming, and claiming your niche, creating this whole audience building autopilot system that you can use over and over and over again. We use this with lean writing. This is how Dickie and I build our audiences. And then understanding what makes a successful newsletter. How do you tie it to your niche? What do readers find valuable? And if you can do that, you go, I educate people on my niche, I build a rented audience on social media, and I move the rented audience to an owned platform, which is email, you're off to the races. You can build anything that you want. So this is what we focus on in the captain's table. We get asked this question all the time, so that's why we just want to give you a quick primer here.
Yeah, but we'll get there, and we'll be sending out some early invitations to that, to our top shippers staying at the top of the leaderboard, filling out surveys, all that good stuff by the end of the week. But don't worry about that. More importantly, we need to claim our next badge, which is your prolific shipper badge, by commenting on the replay video and the replay post to this one with either your day 15 essay or your biggest lesson from the last 2 weeks. Again, we're halfway there. Remember, this is where we approach what's called the dip in Ship 30, which is day 15 through 22, where here's what's likely going to pop into your head over the next 7 days. You're going to have some days where your engagement might have fallen off and you're going to question everything. You're going to have some days where it's much harder to write than it was previously. You're going to have some days where you're just questioning, why am I doing this in the first place? Is anyone reading? Is this for me? And just be aware that that is coming. And to overcome that, go back to the fundamentals, which is don't miss twice. So if that gets caught up in your head and you end up missing a day, get back on the next day. When you have that feeling, opt in for a rapid fire intro and talk to someone else who wants to talk to someone else too. That way you can share your ideas, what you're thinking about, have a conversation. That's going to re-spark your creative juices. And finally, just trust the process. We've been through this. We know exactly what's about to happen. And if you're aware that it's not going to be quite as easy in the week ahead than it was in the first 2 weeks, there's going to be a little bit more of, I don't It's not flowing quite as well. That's okay, and that's to be expected. So we just like to paint that picture before we get there. It's totally natural. We call it kind of the ship 30 malaise, right? That middle week, because then you can start to see the finish line. So don't overthink it. Just go, I know I need to get up. I need to publish. I got to keep learning today. And soon enough, we will be at day 30 where we can celebrate.
That's funny. I felt that way this morning, Vicky. I was like, oh, yeah, come up with some new essay topics. Let's go.
Right. And so I did that and I generated 40 of them. So now I have enough. So if you feel that way, rapid fire intro, idea generation workshop with someone else in Ship 30. Drop in the chat if you're going to do that today, tomorrow, as a way to generate some ideas, right? That is the easiest way to get those creative juices flowing because you know that the other person is feeling the same way. So do that, opt in for it. By the end of that one conversation, you're going to have 7, 8, 9, 10 more ideas. Use that as your second half of the course accountability partner, right? So opt in, meet someone and say, hey, it's not going to be easy the next 2 weeks, but I'll publish. If you publish, we'll publish together, and then we'll be off to the races by the end. So I love to get those juices back up. Cole and I are our accountability partners for the entire year. Can't wait. It's going to be August, day 208, and we're going to be shucking along, coming up with ideas, doing everything we can. So that is it for the halfway checkpoint Q&A. I hope this was helpful for y'all. Now we're going to do some breakout rooms where you can get caught up on your badges and really keep it open, right? If you want to do some idea generation, if you want to just follow each other, whatever you'd like to do, we recommend pulling up the course checklist, going through and claiming all of your badges. If you did that by the end of the day, you'll be 100% caught up. You'll be on the leaderboard for Tuesday, and you'll be able to enjoy the rest of the weekend knowing all you got to do is